welcome. My name is Sarah, my pronouns are she, her, and this is usually a channel about the cross-stitch projects I'm working on and the cross-stitch patterns I design. But it is Saturday, July 1st, which means I've officially survived May and June on the farm, and there has been very little stitching. And so today I am posting a tour of the gardens and growing spaces that I've been spending most of my time in. So I hope that's of interest to you. There is one stitchy note I want to mention, and that is today is the first day of the Let Us Shine Sal. That is a stitch along or a start along hosted by my dear friends Nitya and Maryam, and they are using my pattern Pansy Bloom, and they're stitching it together with Julie and Allie and some other wonderful people, and I hope that they're having a great time and that it brings them lots of joy and calm and comfort. I have been stitching about 20 minutes every morning between breakfast and coming out to do farm chores, and that has been almost entirely spent on model stitching. So I'm hoping to have a Christmas holiday themed trio of smalls out sometime soon, soon enough to qualify for Christmas in July for those of you that enjoy Christmas in July stitching. So I've been working on that. I am also eagerly awaiting the arrival of my Just Cross Stitch Halloween ornament issue because it will contain my first magazine published pattern in it for a Halloween ornament. So when all of those things happen and are ready, I will be back with a regular Flosstube video to talk about those things and some other stitching that I've been doing. So stay tuned for that. But for now, I am going to throw it over to the various garden segments and videos that I've filmed probably over the last 2 weeks. I've been trying to grab spots when the light is good and when there's minimal animal child noise happening. Some of them you'll see when it was very dry. It's been very dry here in north central Iowa. And just in the last week or so, we've finally gotten some rain. And so a lot more weeds have appeared in some places. No place is perfect, but I'm really happy with how the garden is doing this year. I've been doing a lot more flowers than I have in the past, and drying flowers and playing with arranging flowers and even pressing some flowers. So it's been kind of my year of experimentation as far as flowers go, and it's been really enjoyable. So I'll put in some pictures and videos at the end of bouquets and arrangements that I've made as well, if anyone's interested. For those that are gardeners, I am growing in Zone 5A, the USDA Growing Zone 5A. So that's the conditions, and I lost my train of thought. It's gone. 5A, and yeah, so I will leave it to past Sarah, or really past Sarah, to take you through the different spaces. But I hope you enjoy this little peek at the garden, and hope you come back again for some stitching content later this month. Okay, so when I said that the tour videos had been pre-recorded over the last 2 weeks, I was uploading them, and it turns out I did them all vertically, like they were going to be social media stories instead of horizontally, which is better for YouTube. So we are going to redo the tour all right now. So this is all as of June 1st, which means we've had some rain and there's a lot more weeds, but also a lot of growth. So here we go. So this is the main vegetable garden space, and this is the half that we get to use. John's aunt and uncle live in the main farmhouse, and they use the other half, but they were nice enough to share it with us. These are my Snapdragons. See one coming to bloom there. I just picked these yesterday because I knew it was going to rain, so there's not a whole lot opening. I did have some problem with thrips, especially on these light colored ones earlier when it was really dry. So I haven't gotten to bring many of the light colored ones inside, but usually ones like this beautiful purple are okay. This kind is, I believe, a Tetra mix. It was just a packet that I grabbed from either Walmart or Tyson's when I decided I wanted to have snapdragons. So I have since learned that there's a whole bunch of different groups that respond to different day lengths and things. So next year I think I'll be a little more prepared for the snapdragons. But for now, at least we have some to look at. So tomatoes, we've got Opalka paste tomatoes, Italian heirloom tomatoes, and then one Sweet Million cherry tomato, which I noticed yesterday had a really limp section to it because it turned out it had broken or blown over or been stepped on at some point. So cut that off of there, and hopefully the rest will keep coming. But the tomatoes have done pretty well so far this year. So they're starting to come on. And we've got some King of the North bell peppers down there as well. And two more there. These are all potatoes in the back. Red Norland and Kennebec along the back. And then in here, oh man, this looks so much better a couple weeks ago. I kind of forgot about my onion sets, and I found them hanging out in our mudroom, which is not ideal conditions, but I planted them anyway, and they actually have come up fairly well. So I will get these guys weeded and mulched and keep an eye on them. The bush beans are looking great. So I believe the purple flowered row is the pencil pod golden wax beans, so yellow beans, and then the other row is green, the variety Empress. And I have fewer bean rows this year because my children would not eat the beans from last year. And as I will talk about when I get to the other end, the peas, I just kept planting and planting and planting the peas. So the beans were the thing that got decreased in size from that. So then we have the beets and carrots section, which is always a bit of a toss-up for me. The beets actually look really good. I got them weeded and mulched really well pretty early. They had a good start. Carrots, I have a terrible time with germination, and I even tried a different trick this year and it didn't work any better for me. So there are some, they are weeded and mulched on the one side. There's some in there, some in there, but I really need to get back in here and give them some love. And if we just get one meal with carrots, we're doing pretty well. These are lilac bell peppers. So my love of purple extends to food as well as floss and fabric. Here are zucchini plants. I believe Black Beauty is the variety I planted. So 2 hills, 3 plants total, which should be plenty. And then the rest of the potatoes. So a little bit of red Norland in here too, I think, but mostly Yukon golds. And these I planted a lot earlier than the other section, and they just sat and sat and sat because it was cold for so long, and then they finally came up. The calves are in this pasture sometimes, and they broke one of those wire panels and came and tramped around in here pretty early on, and so some of the potatoes clearly got moved around. The rows are even less straight than I normally have them, but they still came up, and for that I am very grateful. So there's rhubarb along the back. 2 of the plants I planted 3 years ago, so we were able to harvest some this year, which is very exciting. And then the southernmost one I planted last year. And then we also have a lot of volunteer cosmos. So these are, I don't know if I can have any in bloom because I cut a bunch yesterday again in preparation for the rain. But these are warm season annual flowers that reseed obviously very well. And I really like them. They don't last a real long time in the vase, but they're just kind of a fun, airy summer flower. So I left a lot of the seedlings that popped up because back here is our asparagus bed. And so by the time the cosmos got to any size, the asparagus season was pretty much over, and it was just going to hang out back there. So I left those. And that leaves the peas, my jungle of peas. So this year I listened to the You Bet Your Garden podcast and pre-soaked and pre-sprouted my shelling pea seeds. So I soaked them overnight on April 1st and put them in Ziploc bags on wet paper towels and left them to sprout. And I thought it would take a few days. It took maybe 2. And I was not prepared to get them in the ground. And so I really thought they were off to a rough start because I did not take care of them. But I kept planting and planting and planting, and it turns out I had soaked a whole lot of pea seeds. But my kids will eat peas. And so I just kept going, and it looks like I need to pick again. We have had the absolute best pea crop I have ever had. So we've actually gotten to freeze some. We had some left over after eating, enough to freeze them. And clearly I need to invest in a little stronger fencing because I was not prepared for actual success. So the pea odyssey continues. Some of the vines are starting to die back. And when they all kind of finish up and it gets real hot here in July, I will take them all out. And then I think I'm going to try planting some cool season flowers in here at the end of August to then try and overwinter them into next spring. So that will be the next experiment. It's the year of experiments. So that is the main space. So across the yard here, we have our herb planters. So this is a bamboo kind of invasive plant that we are trying to kill off. It's going to be a multi-year process, but we started by putting a big piece of silage plastic down early in the spring. And because this whole area was all this bamboo plant, and so then John brought in some tires and we got some herb transplants that we purchased. We started some transplants from seed, and then we direct seeded some, which is where all the weeds have taken over. So that's one of the next projects. But as I'm experimenting with the flowers, my husband John really wants to make some spice blends. He's the chef in the house. And so we've got herbs and a whole lot of peppers, mild and medium peppers that he's going to try to do some chili powders and other things with. So we have basil and parsley, of course, together. I think I'm going to make some pesto here shortly because pesto freezes really well. And then I put them in ice cube trays, and then I take out a cube of pesto and I put it with scrambled eggs. And it's really good. I believe this one is catmint. There is catmint in there. Somewhere. And then some different kinds of parsley. I believe this is the curled. And then your large flat leaf. And then some other things I reseeded. I think I tried to reseed some cinnamon basil because I put the transplants out that I started indoors too early. And yeah, basil is the one thing you do not want to get outside too early, especially in our area, because it gets cold. And the basil is not happy about that. This is French thyme. The oregano is doing well without any care or interference. Is that a lightning bug? More thyme and oregano. And then there's dill and cilantro direct seeded in there. There are some that sprouted in there. I found them earlier. We just have to dig them out. So let's see what else. We have our cherry tree. Got a fair amount of cherries off of it this year. Here we go. There's little dill. The cherry tree is pretty old, and so it's not a huge producer. Swing set. These are my black hollyhocks, and I planted these from seed 5 or maybe 6 years ago at least. And there were 2 different kinds. One was on the other side of the door, of the back door, and then there's these. And I do absolutely nothing for them. I give them no love at all. Just, hope for the best through the winter, and they keep coming back, and oh, they're so pretty. I have taken so many pictures of these to turn into a cross stitch pattern. but there's just not a whole lot of variation in the petals or the coloring. And so you'd have to do a really fine full coverage version to get all those subtleties of color and light. And that just doesn't fit with the rest of my bloom patterns, but they're so pretty. So this hillside from the house is a very shady area, and my big plan for this year was to start a native perennial pollinator beneficial area. And so we have a lot of milkweed that already comes up there, as you can see. And between chickens digging and cats digging and just not the best soil underneath, not a lot of my native things I've added in have made it, but I think the ones that do are going to be a great start to things. So I believe we have a hollyhock even that has come over here. This is a transplant that I brought in. I think this is a hairy beard tongue, maybe. And I believe that one is going to be a penstemon of some kind. These little guys up here are shrubby St. John's wort. These are stinging nettles that I haven't pulled out yet. And then I have a baptisia or baptisia of false indigo that I got from our favorite small family-owned garden center. And then I put some columbine in here, and this is a solidago or goldenrod. And it's the fireworks variety, and it'll someday eventually hopefully be really tall and really cool yellow flowers. But it's, you know, I would like to plant, ooh, look at the little caterpillar on the milkweed. I would like to plant my perennials in the fall, but a lot of times you find them in the spring, and so that's when we get them. There's the columbine down there. So we'll see. Not off to a roaring start on this project, but you know, we'll see what happens. We'll try and let nature take its course somewhat. So then the other my flower area for this year is this kind of berm area. And we had a tree go down here a few years ago. And so we left a lot of the wood, put a lot of compost and wood chips and dirt on top, and are now using it as a growing area. So we had squash along this entire hill last year, and that was a lot of squash. And as you'll see, there are some volunteer squash that have come back from fruits that we did not get cleaned up. So, but this year is where I'm growing my flowers, mostly again for drying. These are bunny tails or bunny tail grass. They're so cute. I fell behind on harvesting for about a week, and now most of them have seeded out. And so I need, like, these ones are still okay. I can probably cut that one and dry it without worrying about it dropping stuff all over the place. But they're so fuzzy. They feel like you'd think a bunny tail would feel. They're so cute. And they're actually really easy to grow. And then this amazingness is frosted explosion grass or fiber optic grass. And it's so cool. It looks amazing in a vase or a flower arrangement. It just adds something really, really neat. So I've been enjoying that. I had a lot more seedlings, but the chickens really dug up the area up here around them. I think that's probably where the best dirt is and the most insects. So we had some chicken pressure issues with this area. But now I'm getting some. See, there's a cat. Honestly, they have an entire farm where they can play. This is all volunteer squash. Which kind of squash? Well, we'll find out. We'll find out. Survival of the fittest, indeed. So this whole kind of strip was direct seeded with Nigella seeds in early spring, and I didn't see any germination. And so I kind of left it, and the weeds took over. And then when I started weeding it about a month ago, I found some Nigella, mostly just in this lower area. There's one little guy trying to come up there. So this ferny stuff. Oh, there's a bud. Oh, that's amazing. So obviously they prefer a cool growing season. They like the early spring. And so I'm not expecting them to get super tall, but the reason that I grew Nigella is because after it flowers, it's supposed to develop a really cool kind of striped seed pod, which I was thinking of adding for my dried plant material. And so I don't need them to be super tall to fill out a vase or anything. I just want to have the seed pod head. So we will see. We'll see what happens with them. And definitely we'll try again next year. So after I cleaned out this area and only found a little Nigella, I brought in my Gomphrena or Globe Amaranth transplants that I'd started from seed. And these guys were a whole other experiment. I sowed a batch of them at the same time I did most of my other flowers when I did the grasses, and I got, I think, 1 out of 6 of the little seed tray things germinated. And I was determined. I really wanted to try growing this to dry. And so I bought new seed and I did an experiment. And so because some of the seed packets say soak overnight, some of them don't. They didn't really specify whether you cover the seed, whether you leave it on the surface, does it need light to germinate. And so I did an experiment where I soaked some and I didn't soak some, and I left some uncovered and I covered some, and I got the best results with soaking the Gomphrena seeds overnight and covering them when I put them in the seed tray. And that is counter to advice that I have found since, but that is what worked for me. So that's what we're doing. This is Dusty Miller. Centuria. I forget the actual Latin name, but it's this really cool foliage. It has this very silvery color and it's gorgeous. I have not been able to find much information on actually harvesting this and using it. It's supposed to be great for drying. It's supposed to hold its color, but I don't know. The stems themselves are not that long. So do you take a whole bunch? Are you doing individual leaves? So I have some drying as an experiment. The YouTube videos I've been able to find, people are just taking the whole plant in the fall and sticking it into a wreath. So if anyone has any experience with Dusty Miller, I would greatly appreciate hearing about it. Yeah, because the growing part has been fairly easy, but yeah, the rest is a mystery. So behind them here is Drumstick or Billy Balls or Craspedia. And they are these really cool, just sticks with a ball at the end. And this will bloom out to be totally yellow all the way around. And I really wanted that to go with my red Globe Amaranth because of the Iowa State Cyclones and Cyclone colors. I just thought that would be fun to have afterwards. So much squash. So those are coming along. They also were off to a rough start because, again, chicken pressure up here. Luckily, I had sowed the seed at 2 different times, and so the first stuff I put out is up here, and they're kind of survival. They're the ones that have survived, and then the ones that are farther down had a little bit of an easier start because they came later. So these are straw flowers, and they are just starting to do amazing, and there are always insects all over these whenever I come out. There's a little grasshopper. And it's a mix, just a general mix of colors. And I need to cut some of these because now we're getting those open centers. And they're so, I mean, you can hear why they're called straw flowers. They're basically dried. They're pre-dried. They're dry as you pick them. So straw flowers I have grown and dried before with my mother-in-law. And that is the same for statice. So my mother-in-law always grows statice and dries some. And so it was pretty much a no-brainer. I knew I was going to grow some as well, but I've never seen this apricot one before. I think of the bright yellow and I think of the kind of blue purpley, but that is a new color to me and it's beautiful, and I'm so glad it showed up in this mix because I really enjoy it. But yeah, like that yellow, I mean this blue purple, I mean it'll be that exact same color when it's dried. They do not lose their color at all. There's a Criss that's a little bit closer to filling out. And then over here is Celosia, and this is Ruby Parfait, I believe, which is kind of a plume type. There's coxcomb types. There's really big wide plume ones that I really want to try. But this is the one that I had for this year. And it is beautiful and it is prolific. You can see I've been cutting off of this one quite a bit. And it's the stuff that I've tried drying so far. I've been using it in a lot of vase arrangements for my mother-in-law and my mom and myself. And it holds up really well, but the stuff that I've tried drying is holding that exact color as well. I love that view. Look at that view. It's so exciting. So yeah, I think I'm already getting a little bit like, oh man, there's just so much to pick. And I know that's going to continue. This is kind of the second succession of it that got planted later. And so I know more is coming. So I can see how people get really sick of harvesting celosia, but it's so pretty. So down here we have more volunteer squash. And I'm probably going to have to try to corral these vines a bit because they're getting into the pepper section. So this is the other part of John's experiment to go with all the herbs. So we started, I think, 8 or 9 different varieties of peppers. And these are all mild peppers. The company Pepper Joe's is actually an Iowa company that has a lot of different pepper seeds. And so we got a bunch from them, and then I bought 2 kinds, Acilio Thin Skin and Beaver Dam, which are this row back here, and those were from Seed Savers in Decorah, Iowa. So there's the peppers. They're starting to come along. They also had a bit of a hard start. They were in their transplant cups for way too long while we got this area ready. And so some of them are taking off and settling in a little better than others. So we are on the other side of the berm, and I just had to come and show you guys the cafes because they're right here. And they've been actually very quiet through the whole filming. Hi, buddy. This is a little Jersey, and he's about a week old. And all of our other groups are quite a bit larger than he is, so he's kind of hanging out on his own for a while he gets going. And then we have another cow that's due any day now, so hopefully he'll have a little friend soon. Yeah, but right now you're just hanging out. He was a bull calf out of Arundel. Was his mama. So this is the next youngest group, and there's 5 of them. I know, you don't need to get up. There's no food coming. I just thought you would want to say hi. Hi, buddy. Yes, hello. Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's, yeah, no. Okay. Yeah, okay. And then this is the oldest group that is still getting milk to eat in the mornings. So then once they get weaned off of the milk, they'll go out on pasture. But we do like for them to be in small groups so they have friends and they can do their herd behaviors. Okay, just up the hill from the cafes, we have our raspberries. These are red raspberries, and we are very close to raspberry season, and I am excited. I love strawberries, don't get me wrong, but raspberries are, oh. And I actually really love black raspberries the most. So these raspberries, they're probably at least 5, maybe 6 years old. Kind of the same era as the hollyhocks. And then we have where we milk the cows in the parlor. So this area in front of the parlor, we've had tomatoes and peppers in for 2 years. And so it was time to rotate in something different. So we are trying cucumbers in here. Again, an area with a lot of cat pressure because this is where the cats get fed. And you're right, you have to worry about the drip line coming off of the roof. But John's planning on bringing down some wire netting and seeing if we can train the cucumbers up on kind of a trellis system. So we will see how that goes. Now this next area, the perennial bed up here, was not originally filmed in my tour because it was a complete disaster. I have since weeded it. So this is actually probably the best looking spot. Oh, there go the chickens. Chicken crossing. The chickens have found a new laying spot and we haven't discovered it yet. So I may have to surreptitiously go follow them for a little bit and see if I can find what they're doing. So this is a big wisteria vine that my father-in-law planted. That's doing quite well. We've got some perennial yarrow or achillea. We've got some red that is newer, and then there's yellow back here that has been there a little bit longer. And then in between them is rudbeckia or black-eyed Susans, and I believe there's another one back here among the wisteria. And then this is a globe thistle or echinops, which I just put in this year. I'm excited to see what that flower and seed head looks like if it puts one up this year. This is a peony bush that has the most beautiful dark pink blooms on it. It has been here longer than I've lived here. It's amazing, and it apparently likes the spot despite cats and ants and weird weather patterns. So, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. There's a little bit of sedum that I planted last year that decided to come back. I love sedum. It is one of my absolute favorites, and I've never grown it very well. So the fact that it came back at all is a minor victory and very exciting. And then we have tons of perennial phlox, and there is some blooming way in the back. We used to have to keep this area clear because when we were milking a lot of cows, the milk truck would back up here and put the hose through that spot in the wall to get the milk out of the tank. But we don't need the milk truck anymore because we're only milking 4 and we're feeding that to calves. Oh my Lord. Are these tarnish plant bugs? They are eating the heck out of this bush that my father-in-law put in. We're going to have to investigate what to do about that. That is wild. Yeah, we're going to need to do some work over here. There's the phlox. When it blooms, it's all that nice pink color. Oh man. Yep. I've got some research to do here. Okay, last general area. And unlike the perennial bed I just showed you, this spot looked a whole lot better 2 weeks ago when there were fewer weeds. But this is the front of our house, and it's all strawberries and weeds. Strawberries and weeds are the ground cover. The clematis is still going strong. I put this in last year. Didn't winterize it or do anything special for it, and it came back and just has had a beautiful late spring, early summer. In these 2 planter pots are the cayenne peppers. So these are the one kind of spicier pepper, and John wanted to keep them separate from all the other ones in the back. So they ended up here. We have a perennial salvia, which is on kind of its second flush of blooms. There's pretty purple. There's an iris in the back. There were a whole row of them, and my husband tried to tear out a tree that is still kind of growing over there, and yeah, those iris didn't come back. It's fine. It's fine. We're all fine here. Lots of weeds in the strawberries. There's some more flat leaf parsley. And then the planter of doom. This kale plant is the third thing I put in there this year. I put some cinnamon basil in there that died. It was probably a little too cool yet for them. I forget what the second thing was that I put in there. And yeah, but I was like, well, I don't really have anywhere else to put the kale. So we're going to give it a shot. And so far so good. I don't know. Cross your fingers. This is another perennial salvia. It's a little different color. It's a little pinker. And I believe this is called bumbleberry. I forgot I had that first one. And when we went to our garden center last year, I was like, oh, look at this amazing plant. And I brought it home and I was like, wait a second. I have this plant. So I really must like it because it has attracted me twice to picking it out at the garden center. But there is a slightly different color. So that's something. This looks like a volunteer lemon basil from across the way. 2 more Dusty Miller that I put in the planter at the front just to see how they would do over here with more afternoon sun instead of afternoon shade. And I tried to plant a branching sunflower in the back that has not come up. So I'm going to have to retry that because it is not too late for sunflowers. More sunflowers. This is my daughter's fairy garden. So we got marigolds, lots of marigolds. And she hasn't put her figures or the houses or anything up there yet. So I'll be working on that. And then in this perennial bed, the tall stuff is marshmallow, which is, I believe, a hollyhock relative. And I planted this and the lemon balm that's underneath it when I was really into herbal medicine and learning more about things. And marshmallow is really good for mucus and coughs, but you have to dig up the root and use the root, and it has to be at least 3 years old. And by the time I got to be 3 years old, I had other things that I was worried about. And so it's just kind of stayed, but it's kind of overstaying its welcome at this point. It gets really tall and it really shades out the raised bed that's on the other side of it. And so I'm considering actually digging it up and using it this time. Underneath we have a rock and roll black sedum that I just bought. Not a great spot for it, again, with the shade of the marshmallow. But I think if I get that cleared out of there, it will be happier. And then there's a neon sedum. I can get through. There's a neon sedum on the other side that's also new this year. So then we have the container section. Lots of marigolds. Love a good marigold, as we know. We had a bunny tail grass that I put up here just to see how it would do in the container. This Gomphrena is the one that germinated from that very first round of seeding. And it's getting this beautiful red head on it. Yeah. I'm so excited for this one. So, oh, no, there we go. These are actually tops that I pinched off of the Snapdragons, and they all rooted and they're all growing, which is pretty miraculous. So I need to get them out of this tray, but it was kind of an experiment and it worked. Who knew? So I dipped them in rooting hormone and put them in the tray, and they're doing great. This oregano and sage both came back this spring. They'd been in the raised bed last year. It was all herbs in there. And so, you know, if you're going to tough it out through the winter and come back, I'm not going to kill you. I'll just move you to a different place. And then this beauty. I'm so excited about this plant. This is called Jewels of Opar. And once it has the pink flowers, they turn into like these red berries. I don't know if it's going to focus, but oh my goodness, I'm so excited to dry these and use it. And the leaves are this bright, like chartreuse green color, and they're just amazing. I only started 3 little cells of seed, and 2 came up, this one, and then that was the second thing I planted in the planter of doom. So that one didn't make it, but I'm definitely gonna have to plant more next year because it is so neat. And I'd never heard of it before, and then I started Googling flowers for drying, and then an entire world opened up, people. So this flower section is all new this year. I took out lawn because why? And John hates mowing. So we've got a native purple coneflower, echinacea, in there, some more yarrow or achillea, summer pastels mix. So I'm excited to see what color they're going to be. They were all planted this spring, and it looks like one is going to flower, so I can see what color it is. This is a zinnia mix, and then there's some queen lime zinnias planted in as a second succession that are coming up. This is a row of sunflowers that are getting ready. I'm so excited for sunflowers. So the back half is Chianti, I think, which is a really deep purple one, because I just had to try it first. And then there's kind of a Seed Savers mix, or a mix from Seed Savers. Marigolds, of course. And then we've got another row of queen lime zinnias and a row of double click cosmos. So these should be a little bigger, a little fuller than the volunteer cosmos I have down in the garden. So you can see that feathery foliage. Really, really distinctive, so you know you're getting cosmos. Cat, thankfully, on the correct side of the fence. Look at that sunflower. So excited. Oh, for heaven's sakes. You are not supposed to be in there. Get out of there. Ugh, these cats. I tell ya. These cats. So this is the raised bed this year. And as I was starting to kind of learn more about flowers and flower arranging and dried flowers, if you go and get into flower Instagram, you hear about dahlias. Dahlias, dahlias, dahlias. Everyone loves the dahlias. They're amazing. And I thought, well, I'm not going to be suckered into that. And then I saw an ad that a local farm was having 25% off their dahlia tubers. And I was like, oh, I'll just go look and see what colors are still there. And one of them had the same name as my daughter. And then you have to get enough to get free shipping. So anyway, I have 2 dahlia plants this year. So this one is called Isabel. So I had to. It was even spelled correctly and everything. And I just pinched them last week. So I took out the main growing stem above the 4th set of leaves. And now they're starting to branch off. And they're almost tall enough to start attaching to the stake just for support. And this one is Sweet Natalie. So it's going to be a white with kind of blushy blooms, and the Isabel is a really bold pink, which is amazing. Some cinnamon basil here, which, oh, look at that color. Love it. Look at that color, and it smells really good. You can see the color of the stems. Yeah, love that. So that was the one that I had left, and then this cinnamon basil had been completely eaten off. I mean, it was like sitting over in the planter area in its little cell tray, completely eaten off by bugs or chickens or who knows. And it started sprouting leaves from the side and just would not die. So, I mean, how do you not plant that and like let it keep going? So that was a surprise cinnamon basil. And then I've got some volunteer dill from previous years. So I think that's it. I think we did it. I'm going to put some more things in that cat hole there and try to get this uploaded. But thank you for coming on my garden tour. I hope you enjoyed. I'm going to put some pictures and video of pretty flower bouquets at the end of this. Most of those flowers are coming from my mother-in-law's garden. She's got tons of lilies and peonies and other beautiful things. And so she lets me cut and I bring her flowers and everybody's happy. So, okay, here we go.